So this is my presentation by me, Jaylene Sanchez. So we're going to start off with the history of psychology, which is chapter 1. And some important names in psychology we should remember are Wilhelm Wundt, 1832 to 1920, established the first psychology laboratory at a university in Germany. Edward Bradford, 1867 to 1927, used introspection to search for the mind's structural elements. William James, 1842 to 1910, was a legendary teacher-writer who wrote an important 1890s psychological text, and he also mentored Mary Calkins. Mary Whitton Calkins, 1863 to 1930, the first woman to be president of the American Psychological Association. Margaret Floy Washburn, 1871 to 1938, the first woman to receive a psychological Ph.D. B.F. Skinner, 1904 to 1990, studied how the consequences shape behavior. John B. Watson, 1878 to 1958, and Rosalie Rayner, 1898 to 1935, worked together to do a scientific study on the psychology of behavior, and they did a controversial study on a baby to show that fear can be learned. Sigmund Freud, 1856 to 1939, a personality theorist and therapist who influenced the idea of self-understanding. And finally, we have Charles Darwin, 1809 to 1882, and he said that natural selection shapes bodies and behaviors. Next, we have psychological sciences. So behaviorism was made by Skinner, and he redefined psychology as a scientific study of observable behavior. You can only scientifically study the things that you can observe and measure. You cannot observe and measure a thought or feeling, but you can measure a person's behavior. Then we have Freudian psychology, which was founded by Freud, and emphasizes the way that we use our conscious mind and how our past childhood experiences affect our behavior. Then we have humanistic psychology, which was founded by Maslow, focuses on the need for love and acceptance and environments that nurture or limit personal growth. Behavior and genetics. So Darwin proposed that the idea of natural selection, where nature selects the traits for something to survive in the environment it lives in. The idea of nature versus nurture is the argument that genes and experiences help contribute to the psychological traits and behaviors. Humans are biologically made to learn to adapt to the things around us. Every thought and emotion that a person feels is a biological event, allowing depression to be both a brain disorder and a thought disorder. Then we have theoretical perspectives. So neuroscience, it focuses on how the brain enables emotions, memories, and sensory experiences. Evolutionary, it shows how the natural selection of traits has promoted the survival of genes. Behavior genetics focuses on how our genes and environment influence individual differences. Psychodynamic focuses on how the behavior springs from unconscious and drives conflicts. Behavioral focuses on how we observe responses. Cognitive focuses on how we decode, process, store, and retrieve information. And social cultural focuses on how behavior and thinking vary based off of culture and situations. Then we have biology of behavior, which is chapter 2. Neural and hormonal systems. So your brain is what falls in love, not your heart. The way that we adapt comes from the things that we have experienced. The nerve cells in our body communicate with each other by sending chemical messages throughout our body. Each brain system is in charge of different things such as sight and sounds, meanings and memories, and pain and passion. And each major system has a bunch of tiny subsystems that help form organs that are in charge of digestion, circulation, and processing information. Neural communication, so neurons send messages when stimulated by one of our senses. Neurons fire off electrical charges that move down the axon called action potential. After the neuron gets fired, the axon opens the gates and positively charged ions flood through. Neurons take breaks called refractory periods, and no action potential can take place during this period. Neurotransmitters. So neurotransmitters are chemical messengers that cross the gap between neurons. They cross the gap and bind to the receptor sites on the receiving neuron, then telling the neuron if it will give off a nerve impulse. So we have acetylcholine, which allows muscle action, learning, and memory. Dopamine influences learning, movement, attention, and emotion. Serotonin affects mood, hunger, sleep, and arousal. Norepinephrine controls alertness and arousal. GABA, inhibitory neurotransmitter. Glutamate is an excitatory transmitter, and it's also involved with memory, and endorphins, and it's a neurotransmitter that influences the feeling of pain and pleasure. So then we're on consciousness, which is chapter 3. So what is consciousness? Consciousness is described by the subjective awareness of ourselves and our environment. Being aware allows us to reflect on our past, adapt to the present, and plan for the future. Past is equal to the present, which is equal to the future. Consciousness is what helps us focus when we learn new concepts. Humans vary through different conscious states. We have waking awareness and various other states. Consciousness helps us cope with situations, keep long-term relationships, and make long-term goals. The two-track mind, so the parts of the brain that are in charge of perception, memory, thinking, and attitudes all work in a conscious way and in an unconscious way, and it's called dual processing. Our brain naturally converts things from conscious memory to unconscious memory, which is how we get muscle memory. Brain areas below the cortex process information related to emotions. Consciousness enables us to communicate our mental state to other people. Unconscious parallel processing is better than conscious sequential processing. Parallel processing helps you do routine actions, and sequential processing solves new problems that you need all your time and focus on. And consciousness helps our mind and body not do everything at the same time, so it kind of separates it. Sleeping and dreams. The auditory cortex in your brain responds to the noise while you're sleeping. Our bodies have a built-in clock that tells us when to wake up and when to go to sleep, called the circadian rhythm, and night owls technically tend to be smarter and more creative, and morning people tend to be better in school, take initiative, more punctual, and are less vulnerable to depression. Stages of sleep. So we have REM sleep, which is rapid eye movement and vivid dreams. Your muscles are relaxed and your other body systems are still going. And one sleep, which is breathing slows down and irregular brain waves are given off. People may experience hallucinations. And 2 sleep is about 20 minutes into your sleep when your body relaxes more with the occasional rapid brainwave activity. And 3 sleep is about 30 minutes into your sleep when your brain emits delta waves, which make it hard for you to be woken up. And REM or R sleep is about an hour into your sleep. You start to ease back into N2 sleep. Your heart rate goes back up and breathing becomes irregular. Your eyes twitch because of brain activity. Eye twitching shows the beginning of dreams. Sexual arousal is increased during REM sleep. Your muscles are so relaxed that your body seems to be paralyzed and you are not easily awakened. Development through lifespan. So developmental psychology examines our physical, cognitive, and social development throughout our lifespan. Nature and nurture is shown in the development through our family and peer relationships, what they teach us, and how we act upon it. The stage theories put out the idea that development stages and suggest that people think and act differently as they get older. Human brain experiences growth spurts and during childhood and puberty. Humans experience both sustainability and change as they get older. So prenatal development, 10 days after conception, the zygote attaches to the uterine walls. The inner cell of the zygote becomes the embryo, and the outer cells become the placenta. For 6 weeks, the baby's organs start to form. 9 weeks post-conception, the embryo turns into a fetus and starts actually looking like a baby. For the next 6 months, the organs develop enough for the baby to survive if it is born prematurely. By 6 months, the fetus is responsive to sound. 2 months before birth, the fetus starts to adapt to sound. Drinking or smoking during pregnancy can cause a baby to be born with an addictive personality and have substance abuse trouble later on in life. Too much stress on a mother can cause a baby to feel in danger and have an earlier delivery date. And newborn babies develop reflexes like sucking, startle reflex, and the strong grasp reflex. And next we have gender and sexuality, which is chapter 5. So gender development, your sex is what you biologically are, defined by your chromosomes. Gender is what you socially define yourself as. Males and females both identify as same feeling both identify the same feeling and emotions. Females enter puberty a year earlier than males. Men admit to more physical aggression than women. Men, on average, have more self-confidence than women, and women are typically more socially connected to their friends than men are. Biological sex. Your biological sex is determined by your 23rd pair of chromosomes. Your mom gives an X chromosome and your father is the deciding factor. XX equals a girl, XY equals a boy. About 6 weeks after conception, the Y chromosomes start producing testosterone. That's all I have for you. Thank you for listening.